Hopping mice are charismatic, lovable pets who will brighten up any household. This quick guide will help you make sure your hopping mice are happy and healthy. The first thing to consider is whether hopping mice are right for you. First, you'll need to check if it's legal in your state, as they all have varying rules. While their care is relatively simple, you'll still need to change their bedding regularly and generally provide a healthy and stable environment, so keep this in mind. They live for 3 to 6 years, so while they're a more short-term investment than a cat or a dog, they're still a solid investment. They're also not really a pet you can handle often, being mostly display pet, something you watch rather than interact with directly. If that all sounds good to you, then we'll get to their care. When keeping a pet which is essentially still a wild animal, as opposed to a domesticated cat or dog, it's important to keep their biology and ecology in mind. In the hopping mouse's case, they are desert-dwelling rodents found in the sandy Spinifex grassland throughout Australia. They're nocturnal and live in large colonies of up to 15 in the wild, in burrows which can extend almost 1 metre below the surface of the sand. This means you should never keep hopping mice alone, always try and have at least 2 at once. Personally, I have noticed that they seemed happier when they had 3 or more rather than just 2. And although that's just my personal observation, it would make sense they'd be happy with a large group given their behaviour in the wild. Of course, you'll need to balance how many you have with what sort of enclosure you can provide. My enclosure is 1 metre long and approximately 60 centimetres wide, and is split into 2 sections. It's a little on the fancy end in terms of enclosures, but any glass terrarium or aquarium will do just fine. That said, anything less than 60 by 60 centimetres is probably too small. I've had no issues keeping 3 mice and their babies in an enclosure this size, though bigger is always better. Even though hopping mice get along most of the time, it's great if you can provide distinct sections to your enclosure so that they can get away from each other if they need to. My enclosure happens to provide this just through how it's built, but blocking lines of sight with foliage or other structures will create the same effect. For substrate, I use sand in one section and wood chips and bark mix in the other. I also provide paper towel for nesting, though shredded paper or straw works just as well. The reason I don't use one substrate is mostly practical. Sand is harder to clean and is quite heavy, so only having it on the small side of the tank means I can let them enjoy a deeper amount of sand while minimizing the hassle. You might wonder why I provide sand at all if it's a problem, and this comes down to enrichment. Providing enrichment is great for rodents and can be entertaining for both you and your pets. One of the simplest ways to provide enrichment for rodents is to provide a variety of textures for them to explore. In my enclosure, I have sand, bark, and wood chip mix, as well as small rocks, and the mice use all of them in different ways. The sand provides mental stimulation through digging, while they'll spend time foraging for food in the bark mix, and will sometimes sit on the rocks as they eat their breakfast. I'd say providing sand is the best form of enrichment for these guys. They'll spend all day digging if you let them. Another way to provide enrichment is through toys and other such products. A wheel is a great addition, as it provides enrichment and exercise in equal measure. Toilet paper rolls make cheap toys, and they'll get the added benefit of chewing on them. Providing wood of some sort is important, as rodents have continually growing teeth which need to be worn down. You can achieve this through wooden toys sold at pet shops, or just throw some sticks in there. Foliage can also be a great enrichment, but keep in mind they'll likely chew on anything you put in there, so avoid fake or poisonous plants. Speaking of chewing, let's talk about diet. Wild hopping mice eat mostly seeds and insects, and occasionally roots and vegetables when they can find them. Personally, I feed my 3 mice 2 tablespoons of birdseed every day, and an additional tablespoon of a mix containing veggies, fruit, nuts, and dog biscuits. I try to keep the majority of this mix as healthy foods like broccoli, celery tops, or bok choy tops, then have nuts, fruit, and dog biscuits as a small portion of it. I'll also give them mealworms as a treat, and crickets can be good enrichment for them, but I mostly supplement their protein with nuts and dog biscuits. You can feed them a wide variety of things, but I'd advise avoiding these foods in particular. Although there's not much information on what's poisonous for hopping mice specifically, I generally follow the guidelines for domestic mice and have had no issues. In addition, even though they are desert animals, providing fresh water at all times is important. Breeding is one of the most fun aspects of owning hopping mice, but there are a few things to keep in mind if this is something you want to attempt. I've had no problems getting my group to breed, in fact it's hard to stop them. Therefore, make sure you have capacity and setup to cope with more individuals, or be willing to sell them, otherwise your colony will not stop growing. Personally, I have a separate, smaller tank which I move the babies into once they're weaned. They can be weaned anywhere from 30 to 40 days, so I move them in at 45 days just to be safe. Of course, don't do this if they've only had one baby, because socialization is important, especially at a young age. Overall though, breeding your mice and watching the babies grow can be very fun and very fulfilling, so I'd highly recommend it. Before I end the video, I just want to touch on a slightly less fun topic, and that is potential mistakes that you can make while caring for your hopping mice. One of the worst things to go through is making a mistake with a new pet, so I just wanted to warn you of some potential ones. Firstly, try not to disturb the babies if you don't have to. I will go into my process of handling and taming down babies in another video, but the longer you can leave them alone, the less chance the mother will become stressed or potentially reject the babies. Another tip is an unfortunate one. Don't trust that products being sold for pets are actually safe for them. For example, I bought this hut from Pet Barn and was horrified to see that a sharp nail was sticking out of the inside. If a mouse were to chew this, it could seriously injure its mouth. Always check products when you get them, as well as checking reviews before you buy. Also, any heavy toys or objects such as rocks should be placed at the bottom of the tank, not above the substrate, as your mice love to dig, and may be crushed if they attempt to dig under the heavy object. This is especially important when you have babies, as they are small and blind and may get trapped under things. With all that out of the way, I hope you have a fantastic time caring for your hopping mice.